candidates with criminal justice and investigations or other relevant fields are preferable.
Thank you. That's in front of us. I guess my concern with making too many substantive changes on this document after we have had a open and public conversation with citizens who represent a cross section of society. Sometimes
they don't know.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I think that my concern is that with us having citizens who represent a cross section of society doing the best that they can to craft a document that they thought that was best for the community, you know, on each of these things that there would be a significant substantive change. I'm going to oppose that just because it was a long process. And as you heard from Councilwoman McCraney, they spent a lot of time talking about it. It felt like a very long process. And so that's just my 2 cents for what it's worth. Does anybody else have any more comments on that proposal made by Councilman Peden?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Councilman Fox.
Thank you very much. Section 11 talks about what you can't be, but it says very little what you can be. So I like Councilman Peden's point. There is no substantive criteria for this job, which we've appropriated funding for. And like I said, it goes through and it mentions out what you can't have to be there, but very little in terms of what we're looking for. So I like his position on that.
Councilman Hollander.
Yeah, and I would just point out, unlike almost every job that we have in Metro in terms of director level position, this requires Metro Council approval. So this is, if we don't like whoever is recommended for this position, we don't have to approve them. So, and I think that keeping the requirements for the job, fairly broad, we have a lot of discretion. If we don't like who's presented, we don't have to approve that person. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I just think about, we just went through interviews for a chief of police. There was no requirement in that job description that you had to have had prior chief experience. I don't even know if there was a requirement that you had to have had prior law enforcement experience in the job as chief of police. But obviously people come to the table and you vet them out based on what whoever the interviewing body or Metro Council would think is most appropriate. So I like the idea of leaving the criteria more broad, and then obviously whoever can use their discretion to vet it out. But I mean, again, if there's no even requirement that a chief of police has law enforcement experience, it's hard for me to for us to lock ourselves into that. Let's see. Was anybody else in the queue? Councilwoman Sexton Smith.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So colleagues, I don't know that I've mentioned it before or not, but in a former lifetime of mine, I spent many years in the field of human resources with specific responsibilities for publicizing, marketing open positions, and interviewing and making determinations on candidates. The most that I ever hired in 1 year was 500. I think that my fellow Councilwoman Barbara Shanklin has had a lot of experience also in this background. And although I will not speak for her, I did not mean to say that. It's just that I saw her smiling face there as I was speaking. And Madam Chair, my experience has been this. Whenever you're recruiting, and especially for a high level position, you want to leave those qualifications as broad as you possibly can so that you cast the net far and wide and you bring in many possible applicants and candidates. Yes, that makes it an arduous process. Yes, it causes whomever's doing the actual application review and the interviewing that much more strenuous. But this is a very important position. So we would want to have the pool of candidates as broad as we could possibly get that. And then, as it's already been previously noted twice in this meeting, we're going to get final approval, or those sitting council members will get final approval on that individual. So if there's someone that doesn't have the background that the majority of the council is looking for, then you'll be able to vote accordingly. But please don't limit your pool of candidates in this ordinance. I do not think that that would be a wise move on our part. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sexton Smith. Anybody else? Let's see, David James withdrew. All right, so this is now, Councilwoman Parker.
Yes, just to make a comment about James Peden's amendment. I like
ma'am.
his criteria because we're not talking about any job. This isn't your average run-of-the-mill job. So it, as been stated before, it is an extremely powerful and important position. And the candidate needs to have a certain set of criteria and credentials to be able to adequately do this job. They need to be qualified to do this job. And it is a position that has the ability to destroy someone's life, destroy their job, destroy their family. And so I think we need to have the most qualified people, and defining the position more pertinently, I think is very, very important. So I support Councilman Peden's suggestion and amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments on Councilman Peden's proposal? All right, that amendment is now before us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
No. Let's see, clerk, could you call the roll so you can just record those votes on that?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Green,
No.
Vice Chair Peden,
Yes.
Committee Member Shanklin. Sorry, ma'am. Can you speak again, please?
Oh, no.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Sexton Smith,
No.
Committee Member Fox,
Yes.
Committee Member Parker,
Yes.
Committee Member Flood.
Yes.
It's 4 yes votes and 3 no votes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So that portion passes. Any other discussion